For the second part of our morning session, we're going to start with Meg Borak, who's our adult program social worker, who's going to give us an update on the programs that are going on to give for the support groups for CF patients and families. Meg.
Hi, good morning, everyone. This morning I wanted to talk to you about some of the various support programs that we have in place here at Stanford for CF patients, caregivers, and their families. I'm going to start talking about the adult support group. This group continues to do very well. It's been in place for over 2 years now, and I think the success of the group is largely because I'm able to offer it through WebEx and teleconference. And many CF adults are unable to attend this group in person for a variety of reasons. Some concerns about infection control, others are working, and others live quite a distance from the hospital. So this allows them to attend the group. And I've noticed that over time, the interest and the attendance in the group has steadily increased. Just a few facts about the group. It continues to meet on the first Friday of the month, and the timing is 11:30 to 1. As many adults know, this is our clinic day, so people who want to come to support group, they can come to clinic that same day and do both. The reason I say usually as the first Friday of the month is the facility that I use, I'm in competition with the medical school and other medical groups who want to use that gorgeous building. So sometimes they'll move me out of my room, and I can't really conduct the room unless it's in one of those rooms. So the best way to find out about the group is not necessarily my flyer, but rather my email distribution list that I send out every month. And that email will include the date of the group, the time of the group, if any of those have changed. The topic of the group, we pick a different topic every month. And then underneath that are the specific directions of how to come into the group on WebEx or teleconference. And that's always different from month to month as I schedule the WebEx. So if you want to get on my email list, I can put a sign-up sheet outside the door. I think I did that last year, and I'm happy to add your name. Some people love to be on my list, and they never come to group. They just sort of like the idea that the group is happening. You can also find out about the group through the CF Center Facebook page and website, thanks to Kathy Hernandez. So as I mentioned, I pick a topic that's relevant to living with CF for each month. And the topics can range from anything like how to survive a hospital stay to coping with anxiety and depression. We had a group where we talked about what's on your bucket list. That was a really good one. And for March, we're going to be talking about use of social media, because so many CF patients are connected through their computers. So it's always an interesting discussion. We keep it very confidential. What's talked about in the group stays in the group. I practice the usual infection control protocols, but the group has really morphed into a teleconference group. There's me, and there's maybe 1 or 2 other people in this big room, and then everybody else is talking on the phone. So I want to encourage you to try the group out, because it's really been a great source of comfort and support for CF adults. Did you have a question? Mm-hmm.
I was just curious as to what has evolved in now, because I have been crazy busy too, but also one of those people that you talked about who had them on your list, but I haven't been on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering, because I can't.
That's okay.
From a caregiver's perspective, I would love to participate in something like that, but I didn't know if that was part of the dynamic, or is it mostly adults, and I should just wait till the pediatric one goes on WebEx and so like that?
It's mostly adults. However, I would say almost every time there's a caregiver that comes.
Excuse me, Meg,
Yes.
Please just ask the question again.
Oh, sure.
So that the WebEx people can
She asked the question in that she's a caregiver of a CF adult. She attended my group a while back, and she wants to know what's the current makeup of the group. Is it mostly CF adults, or is it our caregivers still welcome?
Yeah, I'm actually a caregiver of a pediatric.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so is it caregiver of adult or is it any caregiver? Maybe that's where I lost you. I'm sorry.
I just want to open it up to any caregiver, because I think that people who are caregivers and want to attend this kind of group, sometimes they can just be a wallflower and not really participate much, but they can listen to the dialogue and the themes, and it gives them a broader understanding of what's going on in the adult CF world. It can be very insightful, as you probably experienced that day. Any other questions about this particular group? Additionally, we have a caregiver support group. This group has been going on for, about a year now. The group has been very successful. They now have a steady following of people that apparently love each other in this group. And we're hoping to increase the attendance in the group. The group meets on the fourth Tuesday of every month from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And it was formerly being held at Lucille Packard Hospital, but the group was recently moved to Sophia University at East Meadow Circle. That's also the home of the Community Center for Health and Wellness and the Peter Judge program. Also, a change to the group, the previous facilitator, Patrice Fortune, is no longer able to continue facilitating the group. So we are in the process of searching for a new facilitator. We are hopeful that we're going to find someone and that we're going to continue this group long term, because it's been a very important source of support. In the meantime, I have down Diana Lynn as the contact for the group. She's the woman that's on the table in the corner there. There's some flyers for the group, but actually Ann Robinson is the new contact for the group. Ann, can you just raise your hand so we can see you? Thank you. So just grab a flyer for this group outside, and we hope to keep it going. We had been doing a pediatric support group for newly diagnosed infants, or parents of newly diagnosed infants, which was not well attended, unfortunately. I think that's due to a variety of reasons: stress, schedules, parking, just having an infant. It's a lot of work. So the group is on hold for now, and the person who had been running the group, Lindsay Martins, is on a maternity leave. So we're hoping to kind of break down the challenges of the group and why it wasn't well attended, and then restart the group in the fall of 2013 when Lindsay's back. The program I'm most excited to talk to you about is the peer-to-peer program. This is the adult version of the parent mentoring program that's been going on for many, many years at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital. The vision for this program came from the Adult Advisory Council, and in partnering with them and with their support, we were able to formally launch the program in fall of 2012. This is our mission statement. Through this program, carefully trained and selected CF mentors are matched with other CF patients, also known as mentees, who are in need of this type of support. And the mentee serves as a role model, a support person, and an information source for the mentee, with the goal of decreasing isolation and increasing positive healthcare behaviors, and ideally positive health outcomes in the long term. So we know that there's great value in peer support. We've seen it practiced for years and years in pediatric programs across the country. So now we want that same type of support and adjunct to the healthcare experience in the adult world. It's a real-life, real-time perspective from the front lines, and it's a unique type of support and understanding that can really only be shared by two people that have the same disease. So at this point in time, we have 3 CF adults who have been trained, and they're all matched up with CF mentees, and they're being supervised and supported by a social worker who's part of the peer-to-peer program. And that helps the mentors avoid burnout and take care of themselves and learn better skills in their mentoring role. We hope to broaden this program quite a bit into other disease areas such as liver transplant, pulmonary hypertension, and eventually cancer. And the hospital administration is really behind it, sees it as a very important adjunct to healthcare. So we're really excited about what's to come with this program. But it's cool that CF and also heart transplant were the two pilot programs that started it all. Any questions? Okay.
I'm sorry, Meg.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be annoying again.
Uh-huh.
About the support group for caregivers, at one point Lindsay and I were talking about the possibility of that moving to WebEx, because I live in the East Bay and I can't get over here.
Yeah.
Do you know if that's still a possibility, or... Because I wonder if that has to do partly with the participation too, that getting here and...
Yeah, I do think that there is a factor there, and the fact that the group I've been running for 2 years has grown and has been successful. So I think it's something to consider, and it depends on where the group is held and what kind of multimedia are in that room, whether the room has high-speed internet access and a computer and a screen like that.
Okay. Is the group you run, is that sponsored by someone? Do they also need a sponsor and all that? Is that how that works too, or?
No, I learned how to do all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's quite a process.
I bet. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll just maybe touch base with the.
But I'm happy to help get somebody trained.
Okay.
And support them as they want to start a WebEx for their group.
Okay.
And I've gotten questions about this from CF centers from all over the country. How are you doing your support group? How do CF patients come in the same room? I said, easy, WebEx.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. And this is a great lead into our next presentation, which is an update on the advisory council. We have Siri Baith and Richard Ambrosio who are going to bring us up to speed as to where we are with our councils.
Okay, my little technophobia thing goes in here. There we go. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good. Good, 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 good. Being the change, I chose that. That was out of a line, as you know, from Gandhi, possibly, that we should be the change we want to see in the world. And I would say that is really the role and what the members of the Advisory Council are doing, trying to be the change here at the center. So who are we? And can I just say, when you're feeling nervous, just throw up a picture of a really cute kid. And everybody will forgive you everything. That little kid looks like a Buddha to me. We're a group of concerned parents whose children receive care from the Stanford CF Center. And we work in partnership with the CF Care team to provide the highest quality of care and service to patients and families. I have 2 kids. My daughter is 18. Who has CF, and Tess was diagnosed here at 5 months. So I have a long history here at the hospital, as do my fellow members. The one thing I want to stress here is the word partnership. We're not a group that is coming in because we have an axe to grind or the latest clinic visit or hospital visit. We accumulated a list of things that irritated us. Or it really is a partnership. We're coming with ideas. The team is coming to us for input and feedback on things they're doing, and we work as a team. So who are we specifically? Here, we just took this photo last week, and Colleen managed to exit the room before the photo was taken. But if my fellow parents could stand up just briefly, that would be great. Amy Baugh, Linda Burks, and Sandy Schumacher, unfortunately, is not here today. And you can also see the CF team, the incredible representation we have here. And we are grateful. And I have to say the group has kind of grown, and I think that is a sign of our growing partnership together. I will say, having put up this picture, the next slide I was going to put up was the Rosie the Riveter, We Can Do It photo. There's a lot of women in that photo. This does not mean that we do not welcome the participation of dads. The council members are under the Department of Family-Centered Care. We're not actually, parents receive stipends, but it's not through the CF Center specifically, but through the Family-Centered Care Department. And while this is possibly may look like the most boring slide, the key is the heart of family-centered care is a belief that when families work in partnership with their healthcare team, the child receives the best possible care. And I think the relevance of that is that we do, I have to say as a parent, I love my CF care team. And we have, as I said, this very long partnership and history of working together. And we're all working under that model where I feel like my opinions are respected, the team listens to me, it's a back and forth. Pretty much, once you hit the adult side, family-centered care goes away. And that is a huge issue for transition for families, for CF families, obviously, who have this long sense of being taken care of, who move to a foreign land. So we'll come to that topic in just a little bit. Okay. This isn't really about ethnocentrism for this talk, but I thought it was very symbolic. How do you get to the, why did they cross the road to get to the other side? This is, I think, the best look at what could happen in an advisory council, where you have parents who have a very defined worldview that's about care of their kids and what they need, and then you have the care team who have a sense from the opposite side of the road. And I think the key is to have the communication, to find, to realize how to meet in the middle, how that we're all, anyway, so you understand the metaphor here. And I would say that a really great example for us as a council, and I think I've mentioned this before, was years ago when we worked on the infection control brochure. And what was really interesting is that I think the care team thought we would be more resistant to wearing masks and being more heavy-handed with the infection control. And then we as parents were saying, no, actually, we think we want you to be even stricter with everyone. And it was one of those wonderful moments, I think, where we looked at each other and thought, oh, we actually are on the same page with this. We're both we both are coming from very different perspectives, and then something good came from it. Before I move on, I did forget to do one thing, which is to always know your audience. I can tease the Stanford team, who always cluster on that side of the room every year. So I know who you all are, and I do recognize a lot of people here. But if you wouldn't mind raising your hand if you are a parent, grandparent, caregiver to a child with CF. All right. And if you could raise your hand if your child is maybe 7 and under. Okay, so there's a cluster. And is there anybody here who it's your first education day? Oh, welcome. Good for me to know. So what do we do? I mentioned we helped with the infection control brochure. We have all sorts of printed materials which we have out on the table. Come say hi and pick some of those up. But supporting loved ones is one example. Most recently, we did what to expect during your admission to LPCH. Hopefully none of your kids will be in the hospital in the near future, but I do remember the first time Tess went in, I wish somebody had had a brochure to hand me to say, here's the nitty-gritty, here's some details that would be helpful. So we work on projects like that together. Most recently, a lot of us have kids who are teens, who are going off to college. That's a whole nother transition period. There are many, many different things to think about. And so we brought this up in advisory council as parents that this could be useful. And Lindsay just took the ball and ran with it. It was great, contacted CF Foundation, and then there was a whole workshop. So things, really good things happen. Many of you have all of you have the binder now that should help you keep organized, all your medical things for your children. That is part of a bigger research project now, but the beginning of it, that first organizational piece really became because the council member Amy Baugh came in, who is probably the most organized person I know, with this amazing magical binder, and there was a springboard from that. We have done other things. You can read this through of past things we've done. There have been classes. We used to have lunches for newly diagnosed parents. Now, a thing we do quite often is monitor the website. Here's my next question. audience participation. Who's gone to the CF Center website? Please raise your hand. Okay, you people in red. I hope you've been there. Those of you who have been there, have you gone there more than once? Okay, okay. Those of you who have been there, did you notice there were surveys to complete? Okay. Did you feel, no, I won't put you on the spot. Though I have to say, as we know, CF is really complicated. We, especially the kids and the adults, don't get to come together in as easy a manner as other disease groups. And so the use of technology and the internet and the web becomes all the more important. And so the website, we are trying to have it be more of a living, breathing place. And again, kudos to Kathy Hernandez for keeping that up. But there are surveys on the front, and literally every month we ask, has anybody filled a survey out? So we have some information, and it's not happening. So if I could just put a request out there to people to visit it. We also have a Facebook page. You can see Dr. Mila there up on the Facebook there. That is different. It's a very different, obviously, kind of place than the website. It's a little more interactive. We can post current events for our community. And I really encourage those of you, especially who are walking this path more recently, check in with that, because you will see there is a CF community here, and I can tell you the support you receive just from knowing other people who speak your language is really, really helpful. So what we're working on now, a big issue for us has been transition. As I mentioned, it's a hard shift, you know, from the carpeting to the linoleum. From LPCH to Stanford. And it's been really fascinating for us as parents who have gone through this on the council and talked about it. We are now putting together a brochure similar to the what to expect when you are going into the hospital that will help prepare people for the process of transition. What to expect, who are you going to see, where are you going to go? And what was fascinating is that now that we're writing the document, I would have thought it would have been easy because we've had this conversation many times, but even in looking at the written word, we realized as parents we still weren't getting the process in place. So it confirmed it was all the more important to have this transition document. And again, Dr. Mila had mentioned, and it's been mentioned before, we have such a diverse CF Center. I kind of breezed over that before. That's another thing that we're doing. It really, even before there was not a hyperlink for Spanish language materials on the website for people to look at. But that is something that we also, you know, want to stay focused on. I can say personally, I had an issue last week trying to get medication for my daughter, and I'm a 18-year veteran of this. And I actually did think, wow, for somebody who does not speak English, who's having to make, I think I clocked 27 phone calls, I don't know how that, you know, how people are able to meet their children's needs and get them the help they need. So it was a real reminder to me about the necessity of that. It's Stanford, and I mean no disrespect, but it's been really challenging because we don't have a way to reach out to other parents, and there's HIPAA, and there's all these things that make it difficult to communicate. So again, I really do encourage people to go to the Facebook page, go to the website, but also my email is there, and while we as an advisory council don't have, it's very structured because we're under the Department of Family Centered Care, and there's budget issues, etc. But we want to have sort of the advisory council to the advisory council, in the sense, if we know who you are and how old your child is and what kind of things interest you and what input you have, if you're a young adult who's just transitioned and would have opinions about what should be included, we'd love to hear from you and be able to reach out to you. So if you could come by the table and just write down your name, email address, how old your child is or how old you are and what your interests are, that would be great, because we really do want to engage more people in this dialogue. Oh my gosh, I've gone so far over and I apologize, but thank you all very much. Please come by and say hi.
Good morning. You'll have to bear with me. It's been a long time since my last public speaking class, and I'm trying to remember how this goes, so I'll do the best that I can. Well, my name is Richard, and I am a member of the Adult Advisory Council for Cystic Fibrosis. I've been a member for the last 6 months. It's been quite an experience. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my impressions of it and why you might want to think about joining if you are on the adult side. You do not have to be a CF patient like I am to be a part of the council. We actually have patients and staff members and also just members from the community who have all come together to work, as Siri mentioned, with the hospital to improve the relationship between patients and the hospital. It's really a joint effort. I like to think of it as a bridge because you can't do it just one or the other. You really have to come together. Excuse me. So we're all passionate about CF. That's why we're here, obviously, on a CF Ed Day. And we're all here because we like to hear about the latest research and the latest treatments. Very important for me, very important for all of you. I like to think of those as sort of the superstar ideas of a CF Ed Day because they're really the make or break things that we need to continue our struggle against CF. But it's not just the superstars that do all the work. I mean, I want to thank Dr. Mila and I want to thank Dr. Rowe for giving all the information they do, and obviously we can't do it without people like them, so much thank you for that. But it's also the people who are coming to the hospital to seek treatment. You have to reach those people, and those people have to also come forward and say, this is what we're looking for, this is what we need, because the staff at the hospital need to know what we're thinking so they can better help us out. This also comes from my background in education. You can't help a student if you don't know what it is they're trying to learn. So, it's a bridge, and, excuse me, that's where the CF Council comes in. The CF Council this year, its focus is really to ask the hospital, what is it you need from patients? What is it you want us to try to do for you to help you help us? And the council, or the hospital, has actually given us several ideas and goals that said, this is what we're trying to do. Dr. Mila mentioned that right now they're really trying to improve, patient attendance and the process for making sure, they get seen by the dietitians and that their lung function gets raised. And our last project, which we are now wrapping up, was to help patients find better ways and better access to get to the hospital because, as we all know, Stanford doesn't just treat people from San Jose or from San Francisco, but it treats people all over California and sometimes even further. And for those people, it can be quite a trip. I mean, for me, it is a good chunk of my day to come from San Jose and get seen by everyone. And that's not bad for me, but if I was coming from Los Angeles or if I was coming from Northern Oregon, that makes it quite the trip. And it's hard, but it needs to be done. And it's also, it's what we want to do. We want to help people. So we did some fundraising. We organized and brainstormed some other ideas to help people come in. And we're very excited to see those implemented. We've also had our hand in the peer-to-peer program that was mentioned by Meg. We're very excited about that. We have several members of the council in that program, and every month when we meet, we hear about it, and it's very exciting news. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Oh, sorry, I went too far. So we do meet via WebEx once a month. It's a really interesting dynamic. We have people from all ages. I'm nearly 30, but we also have people in their 20s, their 40s, and their 50s, and even a couple people older than that. So our council is really, what's the word I'm looking for? Dynamic. It's got people of all ages, men and women, and we work really well together. And it's been a really eye-opening experience for me because other than being a CF patient, I don't have a lot of experience in the CF community at large, and so it's really been quite the experience for me. If you are interested, you can talk to me or to Jay. Jay, could you stand up for a moment, please? We have our table, of course, out there, and we'd be happy to answer any of your questions. So if you have any questions now, I would be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I want to thank you for your time.
Please stop by their tables. I mean, they're a wonderful group, and you need to, Richard, you need to tell me where you did your public speaking courses. I need to improve on my... I love your animated presentation. Now to switch gears a little and get us ready for lunch, we're going to have Laura and Julie do a presentation on the optimal diet for CF.
It's great to be here and to see everybody here today on this Saturday. So Laura and I were asked to present this topic at the North American CF Conference in October in Orlando. And our question, what I should first say, this is Laura Freed and I'm Julie Mattel. We're the dietitians, and we have no relationships to disclose. Okay. So the question we were given was to look at the research surrounding whether or not diets that are high in saturated fats, trans fats, and polyunsaturated fats detrimental for people with cystic fibrosis. And I think as dietitians, in recent years, we've been wondering a little bit more about this question because our patients are living a lot longer. And so should we be concerned about providing these fast foods and that sort of thing in terms of the development of cardiovascular disease or the inflammation that may present itself? So I wanted to first give you a little bit of background as to the different types of fats and what they are, and some recommendations that are given to the general population. So this slide is a little bit busy, but I tried to simplify it for you. On the left-hand column are the different types of fats, and they're color-coded as to what the recommendations are. So for example, saturated fats, it's recommended that we eat less of these, and you can find saturated fats in red meat, full-fat dairy products, palm and coconut oils, and cocoa butter. And the fatty acid structure of these types of fats is a carbon chain that is fully saturated or bound to hydrogen. And then moving on to the monounsaturated fats, these it's recommended we eat more of, and they are found in olive oil, high oleic sunflower and safflower oil, avocado, and nuts such as hazelnut, almond, peanut, and macadamia. And as far as the structure goes, these fats have one double bond, and that's why they're monounsaturated for one. And then the polyunsaturated fats are a category of fats that contain more than one double bond in their fatty acid structure, and they are the omega-3 and the omega-6 fatty acids. And the omega-3, it's recommended we eat more of these fats, and they're found in salmon, flax, walnut, and their oils, and then canola oil. And then omega-6 are present in poultry, eggs, cereals, corn, safflower, soybean, and peanut oil, and it's recommended to sort of take these in moderation. And then finally, trans fats are found mainly in hydrogenated margarines, and I think my slide is cut off, but also in commercial baked goods. And these fats have been saturated with hydrogen, so that the structure of the fatty acid was once a polyunsaturated, and it's converted into a trans fat by adding hydrogen ions, and these are hydrogen molecules, and these can be risk factors for cardiovascular disease, and so it's recommended to eat these in eat less of these. So it's been shown that there is a relationship between diet and the inflammatory process. So inflammation is likely an important component in the pathophysiology of many chronic diseases, such as type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, and many types of cancers. And the Mediterranean diet, which has more of the monounsaturated fats and more of the omega-3 fats, has shown anti-inflammatory effects when compared with a typical North American and Northern European diet. So what does the Mediterranean diet look like? This is sort of the old food guide pyramid that's been modified to show the Mediterranean diet foods. And it's mainly a diet that's based in fruits and vegetables, lots of fish, legumes and nuts, whole grains, and olive oils. So what about the diet composition for people with cystic fibrosis, and is there a concern? So this particular study looked at 136 food diaries that were analyzed in 27 kids, and they did find that kids with CF consume a high proportion of their calories from fat, which is what we want. We're really pushing the fat for our patients, but the types of fat they're consuming is a high proportion from saturated fat, about 134% of reference nutrient intake. So is this a concern? First, I want to talk about a little bit about the role of inflammation in CF. Inflammation plays a key role in the development of CF lung disease, as sort of shown in this slide, and can lead to bronchiectasis. And what are the factors affecting inflammation in CF? Well, people with CF, it's been shown that they have low glutathione levels, which is the natural antioxidant that our bodies produce. People with CF may have defective fatty acid metabolism with lower linoleic and DHA levels and higher arachidonic acid levels, and this sort of sets up the pathway for inflammation. And then finally, as we are talking about today, the concern is that what about the high proportion of saturated fats, trans fats, and omega-6 fatty acids in the diets of people with CF? Could these also play a role in inflammation? So what is the evidence? Well, here's the tricky part. There's not a whole lot of evidence out there. There were absolutely no studies that looked at dietary recommendations for CF and outcomes such as inflammation and cardiovascular disease. So we were scouring the literature, trying to find something to share with the group at the NACF and with you today. So there were a few studies. One is this study that is done in CF knockout mice. And what they did with these mice is they supplemented them with omega-6 fatty acids. And they did see an increase in fatty acid derangements in the CF knockout mice, but not in the mice that were not affected with CF. So it could be that lots of omega-6s might be worse for a subset of mice that have CF, but for mice that don't have CF, it's not such a big deal. And they also saw that elevated omega-6 fatty acid levels in the blood were associated with increased secretion of these inflammatory markers, IL-8, and increased neutrophil infiltration in the airway of CF mice. So it did sort of look like, in mice anyway, that a diet high in the omega-6s might show or produce some signs of inflammation. In terms of, again, outcomes like cardiovascular disease, we really, there's no evidence in the literature, but we did look at some fatty acid supplementation trials. So this slide shows 4 trials that were highlighted in a recent Cochrane analysis, and different blends of omega-3 and different doses were used in these different trials, and the numbers of individuals studied ranged from about 12 to an N of 35. The duration of the trials were short, so only ranging from 6 weeks to 6 months. All of the trials were randomized control trials, and they included both adults and children. There were no reported deaths, and the adverse events were mild, included things like fat malabsorption requiring enzyme adjustment. Diarrhea did occur and caused subjects to withdrawal in both the treatment and placebo groups, and some subjects experienced abdominal pain, but the treatment and the control groups were not specified. So what were the results of these trials, sort of in summary? Well, one study did find a significant improvement in lung function as measured by FEV1 and FVC in the omega-3 fatty acid treated group versus the placebo group. 2 studies found improved fatty acid studies within cellular membranes in the treatment group, those treated with omega-3s. And then finally, 1 study found a decrease in inflammation markers in the treatment group, again, treated with omega-3 fatty acids. So in conclusion, supplementation with omega-3 fatty acids may provide some benefit for people with CF with limited side effects. However, really from looking at the limited number of studies that we have, the very small treatment groups, and it was difficult to compare the studies because of the different blends of the omega-3s that were used. It's very difficult for care providers to just flat out recommend that everybody take omega-3 fatty acids. However, usually what we're saying in clinic, and I think what most dietitians and care providers would say, is that if patients wish to use omega-3 fatty acid supplements, it's recommended to take no more than the recommended doses on the label, and to consider increasing enzyme doses when you're using those supplements. So what about cardiovascular disease? So I briefly touched on inflammation and sort of that role. And again, no studies available looking at cardiovascular disease outcomes in relation to diet in the CF population. There were a couple of studies that I reviewed looking at abnormal lipid levels in cystic fibrosis. And in this retrospective review, there were 334 patients studied. And the group found that pancreatic sufficient patients were more likely than pancreatic insufficient patients to have total cholesterol levels that were elevated. About 5% of subjects had triglyceride levels that were elevated. Lipid profiles didn't differ between diabetics and non-diabetics. And then total cholesterol and triglyceride levels tended to increase with age and increasing body mass index. So the authors of this particular study recommended monitoring fasting lipids in CF patients, especially those that are pancreatic sufficient, older age, and are heavier or have a higher BMI. In this second retrospective review, there was 221 patients studied with a mean age of 30. Triglyceride levels were increased in CF patients in the age range of 30 to 39 years compared with control. And total cholesterol levels tended to be lower in CF patients compared with control subjects across all age groups. So, and we kind of see this in clinic too. Out of all the lipids that are affected, triglycerides seem to be affected the most. And the thought with this is that maybe there's a role of inflammation contributing to this, or it could be that people with CF tend to malabsorb fat and absorb more carbohydrate, which can drive increased triglyceride levels, but it's really unknown. And we don't see it a whole lot. It's kind of a rare finding. So what do we know about cardiovascular risk in CF? We don't know a whole lot, but we do know that there are lipid abnormalities that do exist. Cardiovascular complications are uncommon. We don't see a lot of heart disease, even as our patients are living longer. And it could be that people with CF tend to malabsorb enough fat that they just don't develop risk for cardiovascular disease. But a couple of questions do remain. What is the significance of seeing these isolated high triglyceride levels, and what does that mean in terms of risk for cardiovascular disease? And what are the clinical implications of the increasing exposure of our patients to cardiovascular risk factors such as inflammation, high triglyceride levels, and diabetes? So the bottom line in terms of the research is that it really is unknown whether diets that are high in saturated and trans fats are, if they're harmful to people with CF. We can say, though, that we think that diets high in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory foods may be helpful. So is following an anti-inflammatory diet achievable while following a high-calorie diet? So I'm going to turn over the discussion to Laura, and she's going to sort of take a look at this for you.
So we did the research component, and we decided to still go ahead, even though there isn't a lot of research to support. Should everyone just switch how you're eating to a whole new way of eating? We want to see, is it feasible, kind of how much finessing of a diet would it take, and kind of the components of it. So I'm going to talk about kind of anti-inflammatory diet, and can it be translated into a high-calorie diet for CF? So the main tenets of an anti-inflammatory diet are well-balanced meals, high in omega-3 fatty acids. So that's found in a lot of nuts, dark green vegetables, salmon, sardines, ground flaxseed or flaxseed oil, as well as eating a lot of foods that are antioxidant rich. So red, yellow, orange vegetables, dark leafy greens, black tea or green tea, citrus fruits are common. Vitamin C is a common supplement people take, as well as high fiber foods. And then spices and herbs as well. So Julie talked about omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids, and in general, within the North American, Northern European diet, the CF diet falls within this sort of overarching generic term. Previously, several years, probably 5-6 years ago, the thought was that how much omega-3 fat you take in a day was far more important than the ratio, but the trend of thought has changed over the last few years, and now the focus is more that the ratio might be more important of how much omega-3 you eat to how much omega-6 you eat per day. So within the North American diet, within the U.S., the current ratio is 1 to 16. So for every gram of omega-3 fatty acid you're eating, you're also eating 16 grams of omega-6 fatty acid. This was sort of the evolution of the diet from several centuries ago. That was much more plant-based, a little bit more Mediterranean diet, with a ratio about 1 to 1. So the current thought to have an anti-inflammatory benefit is to sort of have a diet with a ratio of less than 1 to 4. So not really close, but possibly achievable. So for omega-6 fatty acids, what are they found in? Julie told you they're a polyunsaturated fatty acid. Food sources found in a lot of oils, vegetable oil, so palm oil, rapeseed oil, sunflower, corn, soybean oil, avocado as well. Because of that it's found in a lot of oil sources, and those are found in a lot of convenience food and processed foods, within the North American and European diets, typically food sources provide more than adequate intake daily. You don't see people supplementing omega-6 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids, on the other hand, also polyunsaturated fatty acid. There's two main types, the alpha-linolenic acid, which is found in nuts, seeds, vegetable oils as well, green leafy vegetables. And then the EPA and DHA are found in your seafood. So you hear a lot about salmon, sardines, fish oil supplements. These are good sources of omega-3, but not a lot of people eat these every single day to have enough bang for your buck for the omega-3, which is why you see the skewed ratio of a 1 to 16 as the current diet. However, omega-3 fatty acid supplements are one of the most commonly purchased supplements within the United States, within the supplement market. Typically, you can buy them in capsule or oil form. They are generally recognized as safe by the FDA, but the supplement industry is not actually regulated on the federal level, so there is no standardized testing to support efficacy between brands, etc. So you do have to do some research if you're going to take a fish oil supplement. For the adult population, and in general, the recommended dosing is 1,000 milligrams per day. If you buy fish oil capsules, they're generally all 1,000 milligrams per day. If you follow with the cardiologist, some of them will recommend higher dosing, but the standard sort of party line is about 1,000 milligrams per day or 1 capsule. So breaking it down further, because we know that we don't get a lot of omega-3 fatty acids in the diet, so supplementation is often required to kind of reach the ideal ratio. The two most common are fish oil and flaxseed. So fish oil rich in EPA and DHA because it is a seafood-based fat source. Typically bought in capsule or oil form. Capsule's a little bit more palatable. Most doses are 1,000 milligrams per day, and it's generally recognized as safe. Flax seeds come sort of on the market within the last 5 years. It's getting a lot of popularity and good press for good reason. It's rich in ALA, so it has a good source of omega-3 fats. Typically found in ground meal or oil, you will not get the same omega-3 benefits if you eat flaxseed whole because you don't digest them very well, so you will eliminate all that benefit. 1 teaspoon of ground flaxseed is about 1,600 milligrams for dosing-wise for omega-3 benefit. So it's actually a pretty economical choice if you wanted to supplement that way. Also generally recognized as safe by the FDA. So then what I did was I took a diet makeover and I mapped out, I work with adults, so this may be skewed on that direction. Basic, typical sort of high-calorie diet for the day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, 2 snacks. And Julie and I looked at the calories, the total fat, and then we created an omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. And we didn't discriminate, so we used full-fat dairy. We used a variety of different meat choices. Because we're dietitians, we added fruits and vegetables. We also tossed in supplement in there. Try and make it fairly representative. Came out to over 4,000 calories a day. 228 grams from fat, so about 20% of the calories came from fat, which actually is pretty reasonable. And then the profile came out to a 1 to 8, and I could skew this profile towards a 1 to 16 if I add more fried food and more processed food. You could, if you remove them, you can skew it back down to more ideal. But based on this diet, 1 to 8, so not terrible, but probably not near where you want to go, and not really reflective of sort of an anti-inflammatory diet, the Mediterranean style diet. So what we then did was we decided to see, could we take the properties of a Mediterranean diet that are high, lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lower fat dairy products, different choices for protein sources, and could we achieve the same calorie goal per day? Yes. So about over 4,000 calories per day, more fat because you use a lot of different fat and calorie sources, and that's become a lot more important if you're going to do a Mediterranean style diet and get high calories. So 253 grams of fat, about 25% of the calories came from fat, but we were able to achieve a 1:3 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. So we used a lot more low-fat yogurt products, lower-fat milk products, use salmon in there, ground flaxseed to achieve the ideal ratio. And along the bottom, you can kind of see the ratio profiles. Breakfast, because it has ground flaxseed, has a very favorable profile, 3.4 to 1, so a lot of omega-3s in there. Dinner is the same because it has salmon. And then the snack times, because they used a lot more nuts, which are higher in omega-6 fatty acids, the ratios look very different. But overall, we were able to achieve it. So it is doable. You can follow Mediterranean-style diet, an anti-inflammatory diet, get the calories in, which is really the important thing still, is to focus on getting enough calories to support how your body metabolizes things and to help you maintain weight with CF. It's possible, took some finessing, but there are some challenges. So it is a higher fat diet, potentially, than sort of the classic high-calorie diet, so enzyme dosing may need to be adjusted. It's a really high fiber diet, so you may get full quicker. You may feel basically early satiety. You won't be as hungry. You won't be able to get the volume in, so it may be harder to achieve the calories per day. There's a decreased variety of choices, so we basically eliminate a lot of processed foods and convenience foods. It's a lot more whole grain, whole foods. So that impacts the convenience potentially. And also we changed a lot of like the whole dairy products. We changed the meat profiles as well. So less variety of foods. And these foods are expensive. If you try and buy a bag of walnuts, they're like $9.99 right now. So it could be a very expensive diet to follow, and wild-caught salmon is not cheap compared to like canned tuna. So it could be an expensive diet. And food availability. In California, really close to Central Valley, we're very lucky to have access to a wide variety of produce. But if we were in the Midwest or anywhere else in the world, we may not have the food availability to follow such a diet. So possible, but with some caveats. So in summary, there is concern that the prescribed CF diet may potentially have a pro-inflammatory effect and impact in cardiovascular disease. We don't have a lot of research to support that, but there is a lot of research and sort of the thought process. The seed has been planted. We're keeping an eye on it. There is evidence that the North American and Northern European diets produce an increase in inflammation. We do know this, which may be a contributing factor to the increased incidence of chronic diseases. And this is sort of globally we see, not just specific to CF. The Mediterranean diet may provide a benefit in reducing inflammation, but implementing it within the CF high-calorie diet may cause some challenges, but it is doable. It just may take a lot more patience and kind of finessing and working with your dietitian as a plug for us. Thank you if you have any questions.
You guys, I just wanted to say one thing about the omega-3 fatty acid supplements in pediatrics. It's important to look at the dosing recommendations. It's not necessarily 1,000 milligrams. It really depends on age and weight of the infant or child. Okay, thanks.
Hi, with the omega-6 study in mice, do you know what kind of omega-6 they were giving the mice?
Oh, gosh. I don't, Darcy. If you email me, I'll get you that information.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking, I think they're probably, I don't know, intuitively there's a difference for me between avocado and other types of omega-6. So I was just curious to know. This was great. Thank you. I love that comparison of the diet. From my own perspective, we shoot for the more Mediterranean diet, and it's made a huge difference. Thanks.
I just had a question regarding, like, let's say a fish oil supplement like that. I'm just concerned from a digestion standpoint. We've had a lot of challenges with digestive-related issues, and I just wondered, is there an impact on that that we should be concerned about?
Sure. I mean, some of the studies have shown that with the fish oil supplements, they needed to increase enzymes. So you just want to be aware of that, just because it's a fat-based supplement. So it may just, yeah, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you may need to go up, like, by a capsule.
Okay, can you just ask about that, or?
I think it's more of a trial and error thing. So if you start on an omega-3 fatty acid supplement, I would just increase enzymes when you take that supplement by maybe 1, or maybe take it with an enzyme. Mm-hmm. Sure.
A question about inflammation. Is the study is only related to cardiovascular disease, or let's say, for example, how many colds a person gets if they have a higher inflammation diet, or how many of other conditions they will develop?
Yeah, in cystic fibrosis, I didn't see any outcomes such as illness reported. They looked at some of the inflammatory markers in the blood, like IL-8, but there weren't any reports about illness and outcomes with that.
That was great. Thank you. I'd like to now invite, as I've been reiterating throughout the morning, partnerships are very important for us, and I'd like to invite Carol Jenkins from CFRI to give us an update as to their activities.
Thank you. I'm Carol Jenkins, Executive Director of Cystic Fibrosis Research Incorporated, or CFRI, and I'm also the stepmom of an adult with CF. My stepson Alex is 38 with cystic fibrosis and doing well. CFRI is a national 501c3 nonprofit headquartered here in the peninsula and reaching an audience at least across the country and at times further. We're now in our 38th year. Our mission is to fund research. We fund research at a regional level through our Elizabeth Nash Postdoctoral Fellowship Program. We have funded Stanford, Corey, the UC system in Berkeley, UC Davis, UC San Diego. And these postdocs frequently go on in the field of CF research. Their publications are cited by others as others pick up those discoveries and carry them forward. We also fund research nationally. We have a New Horizons campaign. We have funded research in Cincinnati, Alabama, South Carolina, UC Davis. Both of these programs are taking on the research that is budding new ideas. We vet this research so those projects that are successful can go on for further funding. And we're so pleased to have this important niche in the community. We also support education, awareness, and advocacy for the CF community. And we do this in a variety of ways, one of which you witnessed today. I'm very proud that we have created our CFRI Live. You should have been in my office yesterday because, yes, here we're supporting this very great research, and at the same time, our floor in the last 12 hours has been littered with cords, probably like a baby NBC. And the people you have here are volunteer Scott Wakefield and Eric Martin, as well as David Suhu. We are streaming live. And that's a wonderful thing to carry this information to all of you who can't be with us here today. So you know we're also archiving this. It's on demand. If you want to have access to the presentations you hear today, go to our website, and you'll be able to go right back and review. And as Dr. Mila said, it is a lot of information. Today we're using a model set up by our CF Discovery Series. This was a series developed in collaboration with Camille Wasowich here at Stanford. And I'd like to see if I can just point to, we've got a CFRI Discovery Series speaker here, Dr. Moss in action on our bottom panel. But we are pleased again to connect the national community with the critical information you've brought here with us today. In addition, we have a conference. It's the National Education Conference. We're coming up on number 29, our 29th National CF Education Conference, which will be August 2 through 4. You're all invited. What's unique about this conference is not only is it an extended time for parents to meet other parents and join support groups, as well as here, national experts, such as we've heard today. It's also a time when some CF adults can get together. We have extremely high cross-infection protocols for both the conference and our teen and adult retreat. So the teen and adult retreat, held locally just north of Stanford, within an easy drive of here, brings CFers together who can meet with our cross-infection guidelines. What a way to connect and meet other people who just are right in the same mind frame with you. Really wonderful experience. So we offer you ongoing support. Tell us what you need. We can put you in touch with support groups in the community, such as the wonderful ones we've heard about today at Stanford, with advisory groups. We can put you in touch with pharmaceutical programs that offset costs to the prescriptions and the CF hardware that you use. Come to CFRI and you will find out about those offset programs. On occasion, we can at least point you in a direction to help with that full-time job called insurance. We can help you learn about organizations that might assist with transportation costs. We can certainly put you in touch with scholarship information. We are a resource and we're right here for you. So with that, thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. And to close our morning session, I'd like to invite Colleen Fisher from the CFF.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm afraid if I stand at the microphone, I might actually blow your ears out. So, I'm just going to go for it. I'm Colleen Fisher. I'm a development manager with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. Our main chapter office is out of San Francisco. It is such a pleasure to see so many faces that I recognize. WebEx. Oh, right. WebEx, a whole new thing that I forget you need a microphone for. So I'm going to tone it down a little. So just for those folks that couldn't hear me on the camera, I'm Colleen Fisher, Development Manager with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation out of our Northern California office in San Francisco. It is such a joy to see so many people that I know in this room, so thank you all so much for coming up and say hi to us this morning. We are in fine company in this area of the country to have not only our organization, but organizations like CFRI to make sure that families have the access to the resources that they need. And the one thing that our chapter does is getting out information about events and fundraising and being one of the leading organizations across 80 chapters in this country of making sure that we're funding the research that's finding a cure. So any events that you want to do, any families that you want to get in contact with, we are reaching out there and doing everything that we can to be there for our community. So if we haven't met you yet, we would love to meet you. Stephen over here in the corner, Stephen and I are working our table here today, and Caesar is with our Cystic Fibrosis Services group. We would love to talk to you more about what we're doing and how we're getting out there and all the different things that we have going on. So if you're in this room, please stop by. If you're not, please just go to cff.org, look up our chapter, and let's do everything that we can. It's such a small community, and we all know each other, and there's no reason why we can't all be out there together making this happen and curing our kids and curing ourselves and finding more ways for adults. The transition is happening, and we all want to be on the forefront. Thank you all so much for your time. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Colleen. I love the energy. You're really keeping it there. So now we're going to take a break for lunch. We have 1 hour for lunch. Please take all of your stuff because the rooms are going to be rearranged for the afternoon session. We're going to break out into 2 sessions where one is going to be focused on adult care issues and the second one on pediatric care issues. They're going to be concurrent. So pick the teams that you like and we'll be dividing into 2 rooms. Thank you.